and welcome everyone to the Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework bi-weekly sync call. Today is January the 12th, 2023, and I am your host today. My name is Garry Trinder. I am a developer advocate at Microsoft. So what do we have coming up today? We have the latest update on the SharePoint framework from Vesa. Then we'll go through all the usual updates across PnPjs, CLI for Microsoft 365, reusable PnP SPFx controls, Viva Connections Toolkit, and the PnP search web parts, as well as, actually, there's a few things missing on there. We need to update this. We're going to go through the SPFx samples. We'll have the Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy updates as well to cover. We're going to go through the picture time as well, so get your cameras ready for having your picture taken, as well as the main event, the demos for today. And we have two demos. So first up, we have Julie Turner from Sympraxis with getting started with hTWOo React controls for Microsoft 365. Really looking forward to this one. hTWOo controls are awesome, so this is going to be really good. And following Julie, we've got Alex Clark, who is from Microsoft, and he's going to be going through adaptive cards samples for Viva Connections. Okay, opportunities to participate in the Microsoft 365 platform community. Well, there are plenty of opportunities. You can come on this call and you could do a demo, SharePoint framework, or anything to do with PnP. We're more than welcome to give you a platform to talk about all the cool things that you've been doing, things that you've been doing in your company that you're able to share and share with the rest of the community, so that we can all learn and just improve how we're all working and building solutions. If you're not building anything or want to present anything, then you can participate by contributing on GitHub. There's lots of open source repositories where you can report issues, you can get involved, contribute, doing pull requests and submit your code, or just generally being a good egg and helping out on the issues list, answering people's questions and just generally helping people out. Another way is you can provide feedback. We are always looking for feedback. So, anything to do with these calls, anything that we could do better, anything that we, actually want to see more of, let us know that as well, and we can make sure that this call is optimized for your best experience. So if you want to get on the call, do a demo, we've got the AKMS link there on the screen. Fill out the form and we'll see if we can get you a demo spot. So we have lots of resources in the community. We have the Microsoft 365 community videos. So on there, that's where you'll find all of the recordings for previous calls, the full recordings, but also the individual sessions as well. So if you're looking for anything that you may have missed before, you want to catch up on, that's the best place to view that. Like I mentioned, we've got the open source repositories as well. Check out those. There'll be lots of opportunities to get involved, raising issues, submitting pull requests. We also have the sample galleries as well. We have sample galleries for everything, but we've got the unified sample gallery where you can find samples for Teams, SharePoint Framework, Power Platform, list formatting. It goes on. But that's the one place that if you want to find things that people have already built, learn from them, that's a great place to start. And everything here is available through the Microsoft 365 platform community website. So if you can't remember any of these links, just remember this one. You'll get to the main site and you'll be able to find all of the community resources from that one place. So this isn't the only call that's happening throughout the community. We've got other community calls that take place. We have the weekly Microsoft 365 platform call that takes place on a Tuesday. We also have calls for identity, Office add-ins, Power Platform as well. And we've also got this call, the Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework call. So again, plenty of calls to get involved. If any of those take your interest, please go along and see what people are talking about. Talking of the next Microsoft 365 platform call, so as well as the usual updates, we have 2 demos coming up for the 17th of January. First demo, we have David Rousset. So this is a metaverse experience implemented as a Teams meeting app using Teams Live Share SDK. This is awesome. This is 3D experiences in Teams. If you've follow David online on Twitter, on LinkedIn. He's already done a kind of a teaser. It looks like it's going to be a really good demo to watch. And following David, we've got Vesa and Andrew, who are going to continue the Viva Connections Learn module, and this will be for tutorial 2. And David, leave over to you for the how to get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Gary. Well, friends, as you are going to see, there are tons of opportunities to participate and collaborate in our community. But you may find that there are times when you're not quite sure how to navigate that landscape. For example, I want to submit some samples, but how does GitHub work? Or I'd like to present a little better on these calls. How could I learn a little few tips and tricks? Well, Sharing is Caring is a program that provides hands-on collaborative guidance. What that means, it means we're going to get on sessions together live on how to do a number of these topics, such as first-time contributions to GitHub in ways that you maybe didn't even know exist. Perhaps you want to submit samples, maybe in Power Platform, SPFx. We got you covered. These are safe space opportunities, which means that we're going to be together live on calls, and we're going to allow you to ask any and all questions you want without recording them. So it's a safe space to collaborate, meet others, like-minded, passionate individuals like yourself in the community that want to do more. We have a number of sessions scheduled for this month, more coming next month. In fact, we have one today on our first-time contributor. You can register at aka.ms/sharingiscaring. Keep an eye on that. We'll be adding more sessions soon. Absolutely free of charge. There is no cost for it. We absolutely want to collaborate with you. And bonus, once you do contribute to the community, we want to recognize all the amazing work that you're doing. And we're going to be able to do that with our community recognition program. This is a formal and official way to recognize what you're doing, powered by Credly. That same Credly that creates those badges that you get when you get certified, we're going to give you some too for the amazing work that you're doing. And again, no cost whatsoever. We're covering that cost with Credly, and it's our way of saying thank you, a little way of recognizing in a formal and official way. Absolutely able to share these on LinkedIn, share them on Twitter, associate them to your LinkedIn profile, share them with your clients and managers, let them know that you are making a difference, and it's our way of saying thank you. So there's no cost. We do need you to opt in. We've got some brand new badges, as you'll see, for CLI, for Microsoft 365, adaptive card extensions, PnP PowerShell list formatting, and of course, a bunch of new initiatives we're going to do this year. So thank you, everyone. Looking forward to recognizing you even more in the community. Gary, back to you.
Cheers, David. Thank you very much for that. This is absolutely fantastic. Just want to say David has been absolutely awesome getting these together. Certainly for a CLI for Microsoft 365, it's great to see a badge out there for people to be to recognize their contributions, which is fantastic. Okay, Vesa, over to you for SharePoint framework updates.
Cool. I'll be relatively fast because we're quite delayed on the schedule. Right now, just from a usage perspective, SPFx is being used by tens of millions of monthly active users, are creating custom or using custom SharePoint framework components built with or used within the Microsoft 365 all-time highest usage is right now on Tuesday this week. So we can see the continuous growth on SPFx usage all up. Let's go to the following slide. Just to remind everybody, we did release a new Microsoft Viva Learning module, which is focusing on the Viva Connection and Viva Home ACE development. So Viva Home is something new which is starting to roll out relatively soon to every tenant within the world. You'll see more news on that one. We did announce the Viva Home actually in October 2021, but you'll see more and more features rolling out quite soon. Let's go to the following slide. Right now, the latest version is 1.16.1, and that was released in the 13th of November. 1.17 is going to be scheduled to go out in the first quarter of 2023. So that means by end of March. And we'll have actually the engineering team joining us on the Tuesday call within 2 weeks, if I remember correctly, to talk about what's included in 1.17 and what's actually happening there as well. In general, we're looking into doing a more detailed SPFx v2 later in 2022. But that's a quick update on the SPFx status for all up. But let's then move to PnPjs.
Awesome. Thank you. Julie.
Yes.
PnPjs.
Yes, we have a release happening tomorrow. We have some general documentation updates, and we had a contributor contribute some updates to SP create sites. There's a new get site status that improves, and some improvements, excuse me, to the typing. So that's a handy new add. I spent a significant part of my Christmas holiday overhauling the Graph OneDrive endpoint. So you're going to see a big update there. I literally could not put all the things in the slides. So you'll have to go check out our release notes for that information. And Patrick did a write-up of the 2022 year in review. So you can check that out and see all the updated statistics from this year. And as always, please check out our V3 nightly builds. That's a way that you can see all the changes that happened from any pull requests that were merged during the month before we do our actual official monthly release. So check those out for more. And that's all I have for today. Well, until my demo, I suppose. Back to you.
Cheers, Julie. Thank you. Okay, moving on to CLI for Microsoft 365 updates. We have a new release, version 6.1. We have tons of new commands across SharePoint, Power Platform, Microsoft Teams, Planner, Azure AD, Microsoft Search, and Purview. So if you want to get the latest version, you can get that from npm. Just use the @latest tag, or if you're using Docker, again, use the latest tag to get this latest version. To use that, check out the release notes because there's tons of changes in there as well, which I just couldn't fit on the slides. We, as David has mentioned as well, we do have a badge now. So if you're looking at contribute to CLI for Microsoft 365, get yourself that awesome looking badge. And on the topic of contributions, I want to actually make a point of saying Nandeep Natchan, who has been a contributor for years on the CLI, hit his 100th PR earlier this week, which is an incredible achievement. Such an impact on the CLI, adding new features all the time. Can't thank you enough for the work you've done with us. So if you want to be like Natchan and get involved in the conversations, follow us on Twitter, check out the GitHub repository, and also check out the conversations that are happening on Discord as well. Okay, moving on, new update. So we have Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy. So if you've not heard about the Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy, check out the call from Tuesday where my colleague Waldek Mashtakaz did a demo of how to use the Graph Proxy with SPFx. But basically, it's a tool to simulate throttling, errors, and responses from Microsoft Graph and any other API as well. So the version 0.3 release is out. You can get it from the link on the screen. Just to kind of cover what is new. So we've opened up the proxy so that you can use any API. Previously, it was just Microsoft Graph that we tracked the requests. We've also added guidance so that if you have any requests that don't use the select query string parameter, then we'll actually give you some guidance. Say, look, you might want to change this. And we also actually changed the way that you close the proxy to control and close rather than enter. So we just want to thank Michael Svensson, Bert Janssen, Andrew Connell as well for giving really valuable feedback early on in the development of this tool. But just to give you an idea of what's coming next, so we're going to be looking at improving the readability of the output. We've got a GitHub issue with a few examples in the GitHub repository, so we'd like it if you could check that out. We're bringing in notifications of beta endpoints as well. So again, just to make sure that you're using the V1 endpoints in your production apps, and also supporting plugins as well. So we're going to have a plugin extensibility model so that you as a developer can actually inject your own behaviors from your own APIs into the proxy. Okay, moving on, SPFx reusable controls. Alex.
Yep, thank you. So nothing too much new in here. We're still on 3.12 for React controls and 3.11 for property controls. We have a bunch of work items in the repository, so feel free to participate. If you have time for contributions, please go there, select one small issue or some small improvement and just create a PR. We'll be happy to review it and mark you as a contributor for the controls. So yeah, we really need your help to move forward and to have more people that are participating in the SPFx controls as well. Thank you very much. Back to you, Garry.
Thanks, Alex. Viva Connections Toolkit, Vesa.
Yeah, really quickly here, the latest version is from 4th of January, 0.3.2, which is using 1.16.1 and CLI 6.1 behind of the scenes. And this is really intended to streamline your development experience, not only for Viva, but also for SPFx development all up. So check it out, give us feedback.
Okay, PnP modern search. So quickly cover this one. There's a new release, 4.8, European SharePoint conference release. So support for actionable adaptive cards and SPFx updates, and also note that version 3 updates will stop as it's been about a year with no updates. Moving on, PnP SPFx samples.
So
Hugo.
we have, thank you. We have new samples from new contributors. We have a new holiday calendar by Harminder Singh. That's his first sample. It allows you to show holidays for a location, and it picks up the location from the user's office location. We have an update by Consti for the tab accordion with rich text, where he fixed some clicking issues and added German localization. And Marcus Miller has added a new web part called Offer Creation, which allows you to actually build a document. In this case, it's an offer, but it's a great model on how to generate documents using SharePoint Framework and Viva cards. We welcome new contributions at ak.ms/SPFX extensions and SPFX-webparts. Back to you, Garry.
Perfect. And David, do you want to pick this one?
Yes. Yeah, just real quickly. Yep, we got one new ACE example, people search from Kunj. Absolutely fantastic. Check it out. SPFX-ACES. And of course, you're going to earn a new badge. So really appreciate all these contributions. Garry, back to you.
Fantastic. Picture time. Vesa?
Yep, I will share my screen, and those who are willing, I will put ourselves in the camera. I am actually already recording, but let's wait a while until we get 50 seats in a room. I will not put the camera on my side. I don't need to be in the picture. Haha. We'll have 50 seats in a room. Let's see how many people we get there. Let's wait a few more seconds until we start waving. I can see Chris there. I can see a lot of familiar faces. A few more seats in the room. A few more seats. Few more seats, 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 and let's actually, maybe I'll do it myself anyway. So let's do some hand waving, everybody. Thank you for joining once again. Awesome to have you in the call. Thank you for being part of this community. I'm sitting right next to Chris. Chris is over there. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. We'll grab a GIF animation out of that. Thank you. The world feels so small when you're sitting right next to your friends. Excellent. Thank you for that.
Great. So to the main event. Julie, over to you for getting started with hTWOo React controls for Microsoft 365.
All right, so my name is Julie Turner. I am with Sympraxis Consulting, and today I am going to give you a overview and some demo on the hTWOo React component library. And so this library is a collaboration between myself and Stefan Bauer of NAD Design. And so let me just quickly give you a little visualization of who I am, but we're going to move really quickly because that's not very important. All right, so what is hTWOo? hTWOo is an open source alternative to Microsoft's Fluent UI web design system. At its core, so there's a piece of this called hTWOo Core, which is a style guide based on HTML and CSS to create the implementations for then any framework, unlike the Fluent UI web system that is available, that's only React controls. This is an HTML and CSS based library so that you can use that design language in any framework. In addition to that, we have built a React library of those controls, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So how do we get started? We get started by creating your SharePoint framework solution using React.js. You can also build an external React.js application and use these components in that as well. You would then install hTWOo React, and you do that by just an npm install of the hTWOo React library. You set up theme support, you initialize icons, you then create your class or function component, and then you import the hTWOo React component that you need. One of the main features of the React component library is we try to build extensibility in at the core. So every component has a sort of template or style to it that extensibility right at its core. And so if you look at the little image I have here on the screen, the item marked with a red 2, the interface, the props interface for every single component in our library contains an element, at least one, called root element attributes. And what that is it's an it's a typed HTML attributes list for whatever the root element is of the component. Now, by default, that's HTML element, so it's a generic element, but for each one, when we implement them, we change out HTML element to whatever that root element is in the render method. So if you were to see on line 35, this is the root element of this component is a div element, so we would change that root element attributes to the attributes for an HTML div element. And what that gives you is a way to add any attribute that is an HTML attribute of a div element to this control. So if you need to add drag and drop events, if you need to add custom styling, if you want to add extra classes, any attribute of an HTML div element you can add by simply adding them into the properties of the component. As well, all of our components do logging to the console, and we do so by, if you look at line 20 there, by having a customized logging source that has an icon in it. And what that helps you do is be able to see where anywhere in your console that you have that little water symbol in the beginning of the name of the control, you can quickly find any issues that are arising because of these components. Okay, so that's the overview, and now let me just dive right into the demo. So let me get out of the slides, and we're going to come back over here. And so what we have is the landing page. I just wanted to show it, the landing page for the hTWOo site. So as I mentioned, we have hTWOo core, we have hTWOo React. So core is the HTML and CSS straight up. You can use that, and there is documentation on how to get started with core, so that will help you. Then we have the documentation and all the information for hTWOo React. We're going to dive into that. We also have another library called hTWOo icons. These are all 3,200 Office Fluent UI icons converted to SVG icons. So I'm going to show you a little bit more about that as well. All right, so let me get out of the lead documentation. This is the landing page for the hTWOo React components. And so right off, we start with a getting started page, and this walks you through step by step. So essentially, you're going to install hTWOo React. The library has a dependency on hTWOo core, and that gets installed for you as a dependency, so you don't have to worry about that part of it. The next step we're going to do is we're going to import the core styles. So all those styles, that HTML and CSS, live in that core library, and we need to add an import to get those styles into our solution. So the way we do that is we go into our root web part SCSS file, and we add a global decorator to our import. And I'm going to show you this live. And then we have to, add an import into our root React element to put the class name as the styles.myRootWebPart. So that's this class name that's in our SCSS file. We need to import that into the root div of our entire React project. And the reason that we do that is because that adds the CSS variables to that root component so that all the variables that are needed for the theming support and everything else are there for the components so that they style properly. And then last but not least, a newly implemented in the SharePoint Framework 1.16 is a feature in the config file, in the config directory folder, there's a sas.json file, and we need to include this quiet deps equal true. And it's a long story on why that's necessary, but essentially it's to quiet warnings about the version of SAS that we're using. So we will go through that in, so we won't go into that in any more detail. The last thing that we have to do to get working is initialize the base SVG icons that are used by the library itself. So for like the drop-down control and other things like that, where we have some icons built in, those are built into the library and we need to initialize those. So we're going to add a import for a class that has a default global called SymSet. That's short for symbol set class, and we await symbolset.init symbols, which sets up the icons that are by default needed for all the controls. And I'm going to go into a little bit more about that shortly. And so let me just say that if you want to create a set of icons that you can then use for in your controls, like you want some buttons or you have other places where you inputs or any other thing where you want to have some iconography, you can also use this new tool that Stefan built called the icon tool. And so this is a listing. It's very similar to Chris Kent's Flycon. It's a listing of all the icons that are available. And what you basically can do is go through and pick the icons that are ones that you want to include in your project. And once you've picked all the ones that you want, you can click this download button and it gives you an SVG symbol set file that you can then add to the assets of your project and then import that into your solution. And so how you would do that is you'd get that symbol set file, add it into like your assets or somewhere else, and then you import that symbol set file after you add at the root source an image.d.ts. It could actually be anything. It doesn't have to be images, but something .d.ts file. And in that file, we're going to declare SVG's files as a content type so that the import will know what it is. So I'm going to say import symbol set file from that SVG. And then instead of not passing anything when I init symbols, I'm going to pass in the name of that symbol set file. And so that would then add those icons, and then I can reference them when I'm using icons in my work. Other than that, we can also just include the hTWOo icons library and then pick out the entire SVG, all 3,200 icons, and pass those in and initialize those. So that's another way to do it. Another thing we do is support theming. So if you're in SharePoint Framework, I have created a class called the SPFx themes class, and it takes all of that boilerplate code that you need for theming support and consolidates it so that you only really need a couple lines of code to add theming support. And it really does clean up your base class. So we need to use that, we need to import themes provider. That's an SP component object. We also need to import that SPFx themes class in the interface. So then we create a private variable for the theme and create an instance of it. And then we want to know whether or not we have Microsoft Teams, so we can, because this library does support the theme of Microsoft Teams. So if you're building SharePoint Framework solutions where you're surfacing them not only in SharePoint, but also in Microsoft Teams, we can set this up so that we get the theming to match the Teams user interface. Then we need to create an instance of our theme provider, and then we call the class SPFx themes with the init theme handler. We pass in our root DOM element, we pass in our theme provider, and optionally pass in our Microsoft Teams, which lets us know if we're in Teams or not. If there's no theme provider service, if you're using it outside of SharePoint Framework, there's also ways to use that without the property. All right, and so then we get started using the components. So I'm going to essentially go through a demo now where I'm going to show how to actually use these components. But let me just point out here on the left-hand side that we have grouped all our components into different categories. So if you've ever heard me talk about atomic design, this is sort of a methodology to break our components into smaller reusable pieces. So we, at the very lowest place, have things called atoms. And so showing you something like a button, let's say that we needed a regular button. So we go into here. The button comes in multiple different flavors. So our documentation shows that we have an enum called Who button type, and that it has all of these different flavors of it. It shows what the different arguments are for that component, and then gives you examples of how to implement each different version of that. And if you click on the show code, it's going to give you the code for how to use that in React, and then you can customize it up so that it looks the way you need it to look. All right, enough of all that. Let's go to our demo page. So I have a SharePoint Framework solution running. Hopefully it's still running. Let me just double check that everything is good. Let me refresh our page so that we're sure that everything is going okay. And I have a button right now that has a dog icon on it. So that's all pretty. Let's start back in our project. So here's our SharePoint framework. This is a 1.16.1 project. We have imported the hTWOo React library, and I've also included the hTWOo icons library. This is our SAS file with our quiet dependencies equal true. So we've got both of those things. This is our root components SCSS module file. And as I pointed out, I have a root class for our component. And inside of that, I have a global import of the styles. So this gets us all the styles for all the components that are included in the hTWOo core library. So now that we've imported that, we're good with that. In our web part class, you can see I've got the imports for the theme provider, like I already went over. I have the import for the sim set. I have an optional import for that, the Fluent UI regular icons. In my on init, I've consumed the theme provider, and then I've initialized my icons passing in that Fluent UI regular icon set. And that allows me, I just want to point out, like, if you've built a SharePoint Framework 1.16 project, there's a lot of boilerplate code for theme support that's included. You don't need any of that anymore. So you can clean it out, and you just are left with essentially your on init and your render method. Okay, coming over here quickly, here's our root component. So note that right here in my class name, I am importing that styles hTWOo React demo root style. That's the thing that adds the CSS variables so that all the hTWOo controls can be styled properly. And then I have my Who button right here that's an icon type with my dog icon. And all that we're doing with the dog icon is giving it the name, which is the ID from the Fluent UI icon that I want to use. And so you can get this either from Chris Kent's FlyCon or from that icon tool I just showed you. You inspect the element. We do need to improve that interface so that you can get the IDs on the screen so you don't have to inspect them, but we'll get to that shortly. So this is how you then add a button. So now if I wanted to add something new, let's say I wanted to add something more complicated. So let me come down here. We have organisms, we have cards. Here's the hTWOo document card. So this is a document card layout that's some people like to use, the card layout. And so if we show this code, we can see that essentially it's a root component for the document card, and then it's a bunch of molecules that are the implementation of each one of the pieces of this. So we have the card image, we have the card location, the card title, and then this card footer that includes an avatar and the name of the person and the change date. And so I can essentially just copy all of this, put it in my React component here. I need to change my imports. come on. Format the document. There we go. And then I need to get all these imports. And sometimes, yeah, there we go. So what I want to show here is note that the import is coming from the hTWOo React library, but with a selective import. So this allows you to be very selective about which components get included in your bundle so that you can make sure that your bundle size is as small as possible. So I'm just going to resolve these various imports. So there's image, here's card location, there it is. Here's card title, there that is. Here's card footer, that's that. And now one of the other things I want to do here is the avatar image size has an enum who avatar size. So I'm going to do who avatar size. There it is. So I want to include that, and then I can do .32. So we can, px32. There's that, and I think that's the only one I need. All right, let's see. And then if we come over here and we go to our component, let's see if that renders and everything is coming. Are we having a build error? Oh, it's just being wicked slow. Yeah, let me try restarting it really quickly because I want to let our next speaker have his time. Come on. Clear our cache. Oh no, I got an error. What do I got? Oh, button type is declared, but I should have turned those warnings off. Sorry. And where in demoing Arius lint issues are a problem. And come on, build. It should work, but it's not. I don't know why. Button type is declared, but it's valid. I know, I commented it out. Maybe I try starting it again. I don't know. Come on. Let me just see. Maybe it's okay. There it is. All right, and so then we have our card in our solution. So obviously you can combine all of these elements in various different ways to make up your own controls. And certainly if you have ideas for controls, or you're having problems with one of the controls, or need any assistance, obviously you can submit issues to our repo, which we would happily take and try to assist. I also have some documentation in our solution on contributing. So if you wanted to contribute any controls to our solution, you can check out our contributing documentation. If you have questions or concerns or whatever, or want to get more help on getting started, please submit an issue to our GitHub repo. And so with that, I will send it back over so our next presenter can take over.
Awesome. Thanks, Julie. Great demo. These things happen. You got there in the end. All good.
Yes.
So on to our next presenter. We have Alex Clark from Microsoft, adaptive cards samples for Viva Connections. Alex,
hello,
take it away.
Hello. All right, so I'm going to take you through a repository that we've got on GitHub, relatively new, and it's been there for a while, but we kind of wanted to raise awareness of it a little bit. And these are samples for Viva Connections. I've got some slides just to give a little bit of context. I won't spend too much time on slides, and then we'll dive into the GitHub repo. Just a little bit about me for those that don't know me. So my name's Alex Clark. There's my Twitter handle. If you do follow me, you'll see lots of stuff that either is related to 2 or 4 wheels or photography, occasionally a little bit of running. So I'm a cloud solution architect at Microsoft, been working with SharePoint for a very, very long time now. So that is me. And here's what we're going to cover. So I'll do a really quick overview of Viva Connections, just conscious there's a lot of you on the call. I'm not sure, everyone's sort of level of experience. So I'll give a really quick overview of what Viva Connections is. Obviously, for a lot of you might already know. I'll talk a little bit around the dashboard, and then we'll dive into what these kind of samples are, what they do, and then I'll do a quick demo of the samples in action. So Viva Connections, for those of you that don't know what it is, I'm assuming by being on this call, you've probably got a good idea. But in essence, Viva Connections is part of our Viva suite. It's powered by modern SharePoint, so typically a SharePoint home site, which is normally going to be your intranet, embedded in Teams. So we've got a dedicated Teams app, which is now there in the Teams Admin Center that you can go and allow, brand, put your own company logo, etc., build your intranet site, and then deliver that into Teams. So we've got the pinned app in Teams, so employees can access it and get access to the intranet straight through Teams. So a little bit of an overview of Viva Connections in general. And then I forgot this next slide was animated. I'm not really sure what it does, so it's disappeared off the top of the screen. So with that comes the mobile app in Teams. So the Teams mobile app includes Viva Connections, as you can see in there. We've got different things. We've got the dashboard, which is what I'm going to talk around. We've got the feed, where we're bringing in news from SharePoint and also content from Yammer as well. And the resources tab, where we've got our nav, where we can navigate around our SharePoint intranet. Okay. And the dashboard samples I'm talking about will render in mobile. There we go. Perfect. Okay, cool. All right. So the dashboard. So part of Viva Connections is the dashboard, probably one of the main parts that's different from sort of standard SharePoint web parts. So this can be kind of considered the company home for the employee. So if an employee opens the Teams mobile app and opens Viva Connections, they'll see the dashboard with all types of cards on it that you can design. And these are great for things like first-line workers who need access to different systems. If you want quick access to maybe, book a holiday, view a payslip, things like that, the dashboard is a great place for it. Okay. And with the dashboard, you can kind of build this out-the-box cards that you can use, but also you can build your own cards. And that's kind of what we're going to talk around here. Okay. And you can target these cards at different employees. So you can target them at different AD groups if you want to. So you can have customized dashboards for each set of users. So digging into the dashboard a little bit more. So what we can see in here is at the top, you've obviously got the company name, your navigation bar, and then the way that these kind of dashboard works is it's split into ultimately adaptive cards, right? So each dashboard card ultimately is an adaptive card, okay? And there's different sizes, as you can see. You've got a medium card, you've got large cards, and then obviously the normal Teams interface at the bottom, okay? And what we're going to talk around is the more custom element of the card design as opposed to some of the out-of-the-box cards. So onto the samples. Shortly we will go into a demo. So what we've essentially got on GitHub is some pre-built samples of cards. Now this is not to be confused with another repo. There is another repo with SPFx samples that have been built where you can actually download, deploy those cards obviously into your tenant, and we've got actual functionality in there, which is connecting to various endpoints and dynamically pulling from SharePoint, etc. What we've done with this particular repository is these are almost static samples. Okay, so we've crafted some JSON, which we call the card JSON, so the actual design for the card, with a separate, most of these samples have it, a separate data JSON file where we're storing the data. So this ultimately is static data and static cards, but they're very visual, okay? And they are designed to give you inspiration and ideas for building cards further, okay? These type of cards you're not typically going to use in production because updating the content of these cards would be very manual. Typically, you'll be building SPFx adaptive card extensions to actually build full cards with full functionality where we're maybe connecting to line of business systems, calling REST endpoints, those kind of things. Okay, I'm not going to demo the SPFx stuff. It's been a long time since I wrote SPFx code, so I don't think I'd quite do it justice. But I'm going to talk through these samples and how they work. Okay, so to get the full value, build an SPFx card, but these samples are great for ideation. And what we have actually found, we run a Microsoft workshop, which I'll talk around right near the end. And we have actually found that a couple of these samples we've got customers using in production with the static data, and they're actually just going into the dashboard and updating the JSON, believe it or not. And we've got a comms team that were happy to do that. And that particular customer lacks any dev. So they were kind of happy doing it that way. So you might find, in some instances, they're actually usable, but typically you're going to build full samples. So it's just a screenshot on here before I go into the demo of just some of the samples that we have. So typically this screenshot's updated whenever we get new samples added to the repository. And obviously we'd be very keen for people to add any samples that they've got into there. But there's various different things from requesting holiday, looking at like a canteen menu, onboarding, company events. So this screenshot just gives you an idea of what is kind of in there at the moment. Okay, and then we'll go into an actual demo of these. So give me a minute while I tab out there. Hopefully that's changed to Contoso's fictional intranet now, fingers crossed. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over to the GitHub repository really quickly. I'll just go to the home of it actually. So this is the GitHub repository, adaptive cards /templates. And when you go here, you will see in the README the screenshot of all of the samples. Okay, there are some additional resources that you can go ahead and read in there as well. And then what you can do is you can dive into the samples. So they're all contained within this samples folder. Okay, and these are all of the ones that are available, okay, to you to use. And like I say, be great to get more contributions to these. They do adhere to a sort of standard as well. I'm going to drop into this live events one, which is one I built. And what we'll do is we'll actually put it over into the dashboard really quickly so I can show you how to do that. But each sample will have a summary, an image telling you what that sample does, kind of what it's compatible with. You can even open it straight in the adaptive card designer just by clicking it. So that'll load up the adaptive card designer with it all pre-populated and ready to go. So you can test it or customize it further if you want to. And again, you know, we've got the process of how you actually set this up. So if you want to add samples, yeah, if you adhere to kind of the way we've structured it, that's a good place to start. So what we'll do is I'm just going to nip over to the Viva Connections dashboard. So here is my dashboard. And obviously I've accessed this through the cog and I've gone into Manage Viva Connections, gone into View Dashboard, and here I am in the dashboard page. Now you can see my dashboard is huge, mainly because this is where I'm testing all kinds of different things. But what we'll do is we'll edit this page really quickly. And what I'm going to do, when this loads, come on. Oh, brilliant. That's always good. Well, let me edit the page anyway, so who knows. So we're going to add a card in here, and we're going to add a card designer card. So when we're building these custom cards, the ones that we drive from these samples, we're going to use the card designer. So if I click edit card, let's just put something in here. Let's call it upcoming live events.
Alex, could we just increase the size of the screen?
Sure.
It's just a little hard to read the text. That's cool.
Is that better?
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Let me just drop some kind of icon in here. There we go. So what I'm going to do in this card designer card here, I'll give it a title. We'll make it a medium card. Doesn't really matter so much for what we're doing. I'll put an icon in here. I'll give it a heading. Live events. I don't know, something like see our upcoming Yammer live events. And this was actually kind of inspired by a real life customer, kind of one that we did when we helped them ideate. So in the actions, I'm going to do show the quick view. Okay, and that's what's going to pop up this adaptive card. I'm going to leave the button on actually as well. Even though we could obviously click the card itself to show the quick view, I'll leave the button on there. I always think that looks pretty nice. And we'll do show the quick view as well. And then down here in our template JSON, all you really need to do, if you come over to the repo, if you take the main JSON file, which is the template, so the schema for the card, we can just take all of this JSON. We'll go and put that in the template JSON. And then in the data JSON, I'm going to go and take the data JSON file, which is here. And this is all of our data, right? So this is our actual data that's going to go in the card. Happens to be, as you can see, this is just in an array within a JSON object. So I'm just going to grab that and I'm going to go and put that in the data JSON. Hopefully that's going to work. And then I am going to save that. Hopefully it's saving anyway. Looks like it is. There we go, that's been saved. So I'm going to, I'll just hit save as draft actually, then we'll reload it. And hopefully I can show you that working. There we go. So I hit that view events and there they are. Okay. So that's now using that data. Now, because we've kind of separated the template from the data, you can actually update the data in this card without having to update the schema. Okay. So, and I'll do this really quickly in the card designer rather than do it in the dashboard. what you can actually see is where we've got our payload editor on the left, you will actually see references, if I scroll down here, to the objects within the sample data, right? So here we're pulling root.events, so we're actually pulling from the events array, and then we're selecting, the event title, the day, the description, etc. So all I really need to update here is, I can just come and update some of this sample data, and that's going to then reflect in the card itself if I pop it in preview mode. Okay, so that kind of abstraction is really helpful because you don't need to change the schema all the time. And we'd say that if you were building, ideating these cards for your customers or for yourselves, then separating those out is really going to help. Okay, so that's where the samples are. That's what they kind of do. And then really quickly, I just want to finish with a real quick couple of slides, and then everyone should finish on time. So what I would say with the samples is use them for demos, inspiration if you're running workshops. We've got some links, and obviously they'll be posted around how to use the card JSON and the data JSON. Obviously, we're wanting you to build SPFx samples for the full value. But if a comms team is comfortable, they could even just edit that data JSON. And like I say, we've even got customers doing just that. So if there's a lack of developers, then that can also work. And we've linked to the repository there. I just wanted to mention this on the end. Microsoft do have a workshop for this. It's a 2-day workshop. So if there are anyone on the call who's works with a Microsoft account manager and might be eligible for that, then contact your account manager, and that could be something that you could take advantage of. It's kind of like a hackathon style workshop. Idea again is just to ideate Viva Connections cards and get started quicker. Other thing just to mention is that design that we've obviously crafted in the sample can be used when you're building your SPFx cards. So you can actually reuse that design and just write your code. So you're speeding it up anyway before you're even developing it. And then obviously contributions, if you've got any samples, stuff you've already done, please contribute them in there. That'd be brilliant. And just, you'll see the format of the existing samples. So you can just follow those, and that would be great. And from me, that is actually, that's it.
Fantastic. Great work there, Alex. Sure those samples will be definitely being looked at shortly. Tons of resources in there. I can see a lot of activity in the chat about, wow, there's so much to learn. Well, it's all out there, folks. You can basically find it when you need it. It's already in and there for you to use. Fantastic. Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the call. So thank you for joining today. Recording will be available in 24 hours on the Microsoft 365 community YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed, go along, subscribe, make sure you get all the latest videos. Follow us on Twitter, Microsoft 365 Dev and M365 PnP for latest updates. And the next call will be January the 26th for the Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework call. And the next call, the next Microsoft 365 Power Platform call, will be January the 19th. All to say is thank you and goodbye. Bye-bye.
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 Bye-bye.